age, the power of her voice. Megan, along with her two sisters, was raised by her parents to be a woman with strong convictions. She received her bachelor's degree in 1995 from California State University, Chico, in International Relations with Latin American Studies and Women's Studies minors, and her master's degree in sociology from CSU Sacramento in 1998 with an emphasis on feminist theory. During her time at Chico State, she was introduced to the National Organization for Women, NOW, where she quickly became involved in leadership roles. In 1999, she was elected California NOW Young Feminist Vice President, the first such position, and a tribute to California NOW's commitment to increasing youth activism. In 2001, she was elected the youngest ever California NOW State President. She served 2 terms before taking over as Executive Director of the California NOW Foundation. Megan Seeley is the executive producer on 2 California NOW films, Passion for Justice, 21st Century Feminism, and Action for Justice, Making a Difference for Women and Girls. As an activist, teacher, and feminist, Megan is dedicated to supporting young women in their educational development. To do so, she seeks to increase awareness of what is at stake for women and girls, dispel the myths about feminism today, and create a movement that is relevant to young women and men. She is passionate about instituting grassroots and political activist trainings, encouraging an intergenerational dialogue, and redesigning leadership for a sustainable and equitable democracy. Megan Seeley is also the author of the book, Fight Like a Girl. Please welcome Megan Seeley.
Oh, cheers! It's your boys!
Hi everybody, thank you for coming out. Love this event. 30 years we've been doing this. This is very, very exciting. So I was thinking about the topic tonight and how many statistics there are out there about women and violence against women. The numbers are important, definitely. Important to recognize, important to assess. They tell us many things. But to me, knowing that one woman has been intentionally harmed is enough. Where one woman is brutalized, we all are. For what these numbers tell us, most importantly, is that we have a culture of violence in which women are far too often the casualty. A culture that views women as disposable. One that allows the abuse of women to be entertainment in our songs, in movies. One that dismisses claims of harassment as self-created drama from women. One that has incorporated derogatory language against women in everyday speak of TV, pop culture, and even among individuals. One that far too often blames women for the very violence against them. Tonight we say enough. We stand collectively together with 30 years of this event's history behind us, and with a global movement to eradicate violence against women and say no more. Tonight, let us also reclaim a history long denied us, a history of our collective strength as women. Women have been and always will be warriors, from our public lives to our private ones. We are strong. Instead of the barrage of fairy tales that teach us that we are weak, that we are less, that we are dependent, that we are passive, what would our collective consciousness look like today if we were raised with other stories? Stories of Attila of Canossa, for example, who ruled Tuscany, led into battle and influenced the Vatican. Or the many women who fought in the American Revolution, like Margaret Corbin, who took over her husband's cannon in the Battle of Fort Washington and was the first woman in U.S. history to be awarded disability pension for time served. Or the many women who served as spies, fought, volunteered, or were captured in wartime. What if we heard the everyday stories of women who fought and found strength and survived violence and thrived? The stories like so many of you here can share.
Oh, Lord.
And the stories of those who said no more from even an early age, like that of the South Philadelphia high school girls who, fed up with a 25-year-old man who'd been flashing himself in front of their school, ran him down, detained him until police could arrive. Now, don't mistake these examples that I'm giving you as me advocating that violence justifies violence or that war is good. But I am curious. If we knew these stories, if we heard more about women who are strong, who are fighters in war, in peace, in social justice movements, in our homes, if instead of our culture of Cinderella and Snow White and Little Mermaid fairy tales, we had a culture committed to teaching us all about the strength and value of women and girls, would we believe ourselves to be? If we were told this different fairy tale, would we internalize our worth, as we so often internalize the opposite today? Would we value ourselves? Would our culture? Instead of the many news stories of women abused, and the many more that are not reported, would we see news or outlets reporting on the outrage of a community, the shock of a nation, that any violence against women occurred in the first place? A culture where we wouldn't think to show images of women victimized for entertainment. For video games with gratuitous violence wouldn't even make it to the market, and songs would not air, not because of censorship, but because nobody, no one, would find it entertaining to watch or listen to the brutalization of women for entertainment. Would we learn to trust ourselves and trust our instinct? We're often taught to ignore that little voice inside of us, those little hairs that stand on end, the instinct inside us all. We're taught to be polite, to be nice. What if instead we learn that protecting ourselves, trusting ourselves is more important than being nice? When I was 14, my mom told me a story that's always stayed with me. At the time, my mom was a returning student to UC Santa Cruz. And one day she was walking up the path from the lower parking lot, and she got that feeling, just a feeling. Someone was coming up behind her, and it felt strange, and she got nervous. Things just didn't feel right. So she stepped aside, opened up the path, looked directly at the guy invading her space, coming up behind her, and she loudly and clearly said, "You're in my space! Go on, move!" She'll never know if he was an attacker. It doesn't really matter. She had an instinct and she trusted it. Her assertiveness scared the shit out of him, and he kept going. He moved away from her. She came home and she told this story to her 3 daughters. She'd been raised in the 50s and taught to always be polite. The lesson she taught us that day is that polite is not always right. There's no right or wrong way or response when confronted with violence. We all manage this in our own ways. The fact that we're standing here now should be celebrated. It's our culture that needs changed. One way we do this is with events like this, Take Back the Night. We need to carry the energy of tonight with us every day. We must continue to stand together as we do tonight. We must trust women. We must believe women. And we must do the same for ourselves. Our culture teaches us to live in fear, to believe that we are weak, that we are less. Let us tell a new story. Thanks for joining us tonight.